In early 2024, the city of Chicago found itself at the center of a heated courtroom drama that gripped the local community and stirred national conversations on youth conduct and social media responsibility. At the heart of this controversy was Ethan Collins, a 14-year-old boy, standing trial for posting cruel jokes about the recent death of a fellow teenager, Marcus Reed. The case unfolded amid an atmosphere heavy with grief, anger, and a growing awareness of the power and consequences of online behavior. Marcus Reed, a vibrant and well-liked high school student, had passed away under tragic circumstances just weeks before the trial commenced. His untimely death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit neighborhoods surrounding his school, leaving friends and family devastated. The loss was deeply felt, and a wave of mourning swept over the community, which had rallied to support Marcus's family in their time of sorrow. Before we jump into the details of this shocking case, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button to stay updated with our latest content. And I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on how we should handle online bullying among teens? However, the collective grief was soon overshadowed by a disturbing series of social media posts that Ethan Collins had made in the days following Marcus's funeral. Known among peers for his sharp wit and sometimes careless humor, Ethan's posts quickly drew outrage. He shared a string of jokes and memes that mocked Marcus's death, demonstrating a callous disregard for the pain experienced by those who knew him. The timing and content of these posts were seen by many as particularly cruel, coming so soon after the funeral and during a period when the community was still trying to come to terms with the tragedy. Ethan's actions ignited a firestorm of criticism. Marcus's friends and family voiced their heartbreak and anger, describing the posts as not only disrespectful, but deeply hurtful. "It's like he was trying to erase Marcus's memory," said Linda Reed, Marcus's mother, during a local news interview. "No one should be mocked in death, especially not in this way." Social media platforms became a battleground, with heated exchanges between supporters of Marcus's memory and those who defended Ethan's right to free expression, albeit questioning his judgment and maturity. As the backlash intensified, school officials became involved. Reports surfaced that Ethan had extended his behavior beyond social media, allegedly bullying other students by making insensitive remarks about Marcus and the circumstances of his death. These reports alarmed educators and administrators who recognized the potential damage such conduct could inflict on the school environment and on students still grieving. The principal of Ethan's school issued a statement condemning the behavior and assuring parents that the issue was being taken seriously. The escalating situation prompted the Cook County Juvenile Court to open a formal investigation into Ethan's conduct. The legal system faced the delicate task of addressing the offense seriously while considering Ethan's age and the appropriate measures for rehabilitation. The case quickly attracted media attention, with news outlets and social commentators debating the boundaries of juvenile accountability and the impact of digital harassment. Community members found themselves divided. Some argued that Ethan's youth and lack of maturity should shield him from harsh penalties, advocating for counseling and educational interventions rather than punishment. Others insisted that the cruelty of his actions demanded a firm response to uphold community standards and protect victims' dignity. Public forums and social media platforms buzzed with opinions, reflecting broader societal struggles with navigating the complexities of adolescent behavior in the digital age. The courtroom where Ethan stood trial was charged with emotion. The judge, a veteran of juvenile cases, recognized the sensitivity of the proceedings and the weight of the issues at stake. He reminded those present of the importance of balancing justice with compassion, noting that the case was not simply about punishment, but about the opportunity to guide a young person toward understanding the consequences of his actions. Ethan himself appeared visibly uncomfortable throughout the early stages of the trial. His youthful face betrayed a mixture of defiance and confusion, as if grappling with the unfamiliar scrutiny and the gravity of the accusations. His defense attorney portrayed him as a boy who had made a serious mistake, emphasizing his client's potential for growth and the need for supportive interventions rather than criminalization. Yet, the prosecution painted a different picture. They argued that Ethan's posts were calculated and intentional, not the product of mere thoughtlessness. The timing and nature of the jokes, they contended, demonstrated a profound lack of empathy and a willingness to inflict emotional harm on a grieving community. Prosecutors stressed that even young offenders must be held accountable when their actions cause significant distress to others. The trial was set against a backdrop of increasing awareness about the effects of cyberbullying and emotional harassment. Experts in youth psychology and digital behavior were preparing to weigh in, ready to explain how seemingly harmless jokes could inflict lasting damage on victims and their families. The case was poised to become a landmark in how juvenile offenses involving social media would be handled in the future. Outside the courtroom, the community's reaction was palpable. Vigils and memorials for Marcus Reed continued, often accompanied by calls for kindness and respect online. Local schools initiated programs aimed at teaching empathy and digital citizenship, hoping to prevent similar incidents. Parents expressed concern about their children's online activity, recognizing how quickly words typed on a screen could lead to real-world consequences. For Marcus's family, the trial was a painful reminder of their loss. They attended court sessions, seeking justice not only for Marcus, but also for the message the case would send to others. "This isn't just about my son," said Marcus's father, James Reed, in a heartfelt statement. "It's about teaching our kids that their words have power, and that power must be used responsibly." As the trial moved forward, the community braced for what would be a difficult but necessary reckoning. Ethan Collins' case was more than a legal proceeding. It was a reflection of the challenges faced by a generation coming of age in a world where online actions can reverberate far beyond the screen. The courtroom served as a stage for a broader conversation about accountability, empathy, and the role of justice in shaping young lives. In the weeks following the initial courtroom proceedings, investigators delved deeper into the details surrounding Ethan Collins' conduct, uncovering a troubling pattern of behavior that extended beyond the offensive social media posts. The case, which had initially appeared to be a singular lapse in judgment, soon revealed layers of complexity involving bullying, emotional distress, and the pervasive impact of digital communication among teenagers. Ethan's series of posts mocking Marcus Reed's death had been just the beginning. Authorities, working with school officials and digital experts, traced multiple messages and comments that Ethan had made across various social media platforms. These posts were not isolated. Rather, they formed a consistent thread of insensitive remarks, often targeting Marcus's friends and others who expressed grief. His jokes, initially dismissed by some as immature humor, had escalated into a pattern of harassment that made the school environment increasingly hostile for many students. Interviews with classmates painted a revealing portrait of Ethan's behavior. Several students described feeling intimidated and distressed by his relentless teasing and the way he used social media to amplify his messages. "He didn't just stop at the posts about Marcus," said one student who wished to remain anonymous. "He would send direct messages to people, mocking them or trying to stir up trouble. It felt like he was trying to hurt as many people as possible." This testimony underscored the emotional toll that Ethan's actions had on his peers, many of whom were still navigating their own grief. Parents and teachers echoed these concerns. School counselors reported an increase in students seeking support for anxiety and emotional distress linked to bullying incidents connected to the case. The school administration faced mounting pressure from families demanding decisive action to protect students and foster a safer, more respectful environment. The principal convened meetings with parents and staff, emphasizing the importance of community healing and the need to address bullying proactively. Amid this backdrop, Marcus Reed's family remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. They worked closely with legal authorities to ensure that the full scope of Ethan's conduct was acknowledged. "It's not just about the jokes," Linda Reed insisted during an interview with a local newspaper. "It's about the pain he caused to everyone who cared about Marcus. We want to make sure this doesn't happen to any other family." Their involvement added a deeply personal dimension to the legal proceedings and galvanized public support for holding Ethan accountable. The investigation also brought to light troubling reports that Ethan had attempted to intimidate other students who spoke out against him. Witnesses recounted incidents where Ethan confronted peers in hallways or sent threatening messages, further exacerbating the atmosphere of fear and discomfort. School officials described these actions as bullying that extended beyond digital spaces, highlighting the challenges of addressing such behavior both online and offline. Digital forensic experts played a crucial role in compiling evidence. They meticulously documented Ethan's posts, messages, and interactions, establishing a timeline that showed a deliberate and sustained pattern of harassment. The evidence was irrefutable. Ethan had used social media platforms not only to spread hurtful jokes, but also to target individuals personally, knowing the emotional impact his words would carry. This comprehensive digital footprint became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. The community's response to these revelations was mixed but passionate. Some residents expressed shock at the extent of Ethan's behavior, emphasizing the importance of accountability for all ages. "We can't let children think their actions online don't have consequences," said a local advocate for anti-bullying programs. Others, particularly those close to Ethan, appealed for understanding and support, arguing that his actions stemmed from immaturity and a lack of guidance rather than malice. School officials recognized the broader implications of the case. The incident spurred the district to review its policies on bullying and cyber harassment, leading to the implementation of new initiatives aimed at educating students about digital citizenship and the importance of empathy. Workshops and counseling sessions were introduced, targeting both offenders and victims in an effort to create a more compassionate school culture. Ethan's defense team faced the daunting task of responding to the growing body of evidence. They acknowledged the offensive nature of the posts, but sought to contextualize his behavior within the framework of adolescent development. Ethan is a young boy who made serious mistakes. His attorney stated in court filings, "He lacked the maturity to fully grasp the consequences of his actions and is willing to accept help to learn and grow from this experience." The defense emphasized the importance of rehabilitation over punishment, highlighting Ethan's willingness to engage in counseling and educational programs. At the same time, the prosecution remained resolute. They argued that Ethan's actions went beyond mere youthful indiscretion, pointing to the intentional nature of the harassment and the real harm inflicted on Marcus's family and the school community. This was not a momentary lapse, the lead prosecutor told the court. It was a calculated series of acts designed to mock, intimidate, and cause emotional pain. Justice demands that we hold Ethan accountable to prevent such behavior from being normalized. The judge overseeing the case weighed the evidence carefully, understanding the delicate balance between protecting the rights of a juvenile offender and acknowledging the severity of the emotional damage caused. The court hearings included expert testimony from child psychologists who discussed the developmental challenges faced by adolescents and the potential for behavioral change when appropriate interventions are applied. These insights informed the judge's approach, signaling a nuanced consideration of the issues at hand. Throughout the investigation, Ethan remained largely silent, his demeanor shifting between defiance and remorse. When questioned about the posts and the impact of his actions, he expressed confusion over why people were so upset, but also showed signs of regret when confronted with the emotional toll on Marcus's loved ones. His parents, visibly strained by the ordeal, expressed hope that their son could learn from the experience and emerge as a better person. The unfolding details of the case captured the attention of media outlets beyond Chicago, sparking discussions nationwide about the consequences of online behavior among minors. Legal experts debated the challenges of prosecuting juvenile cyberbullying cases, the role of schools in prevention, and the societal responsibility to educate young people about respect and empathy in digital spaces. The story became emblematic of the new realities facing communities in an interconnected world. As the investigation progressed, the city grappled with the complex interplay of justice, education, and healing. Marcus Reed's death had already left a void, but the added layer of harassment complicated the community's path forward. Schools, families, and local organizations united in efforts to address the root causes of such behavior, recognizing that the solution required more than legal action. It demanded cultural change. Ethan's case, once seen as a simple matter of inappropriate jokes, had evolved into a profound examination of youth, accountability, and the power of words. The evidence amassed painted a clear picture of a young boy who had crossed boundaries, leaving emotional scars in his wake. The legal and social ramifications were still unfolding, but one thing was certain: the community was determined to confront these challenges head-on, ensuring that respect and empathy would be central to the lessons learned from this painful chapter. The investigation into Ethan Collins' conduct had revealed a troubling pattern of harassment and insensitivity. But as the court case advanced, the community's response grew increasingly complex and divided. Interviews with classmates, friends, and family members painted a varied picture of Ethan, a boy caught between youthful immaturity and actions with serious consequences. As authorities sought to piece together the full extent of his behavior, the public debate intensified, reflecting broader tensions about justice, accountability, and the role of age in adjudicating digital offenses. Police and juvenile court officials conducted extensive interviews, aiming to understand not only what Ethan had done, but also why. Classmates described a mix of reactions to Ethan's posts and behavior. Some recalled feeling intimidated or hurt, while others viewed his actions as reckless but not malicious. He always tried to be the class clown, but this time he went too far, one student told investigators. The testimonies revealed that Ethan's relentless joking had created a hostile environment, leaving many students wary of expressing their grief openly. Family members added further nuance. Ethan's parents described him as a typically energetic and sometimes impulsive adolescent, unaware of the profound effects his words could have. He didn't mean to hurt anyone, his mother said in a quiet courtroom moment. Yet even within his family, there was recognition that his behavior crossed a line, prompting them to support the legal process and encourage him to take responsibility. Marcus Reed's family remained at the forefront of the emotional landscape surrounding the trial. Their grief was palpable, but so was their determination. They spoke openly about the pain caused not only by Marcus's death, but by the callous treatment of his memory. "It's as if the wound was reopened," Linda Reed said during a community forum. Their presence underscored the human cost behind the case and lent weight to calls for justice. The evidence presented to the court included a trove of social media posts, text messages, and witness statements, meticulously compiled by investigators and digital forensic experts. These materials demonstrated that Ethan's disrespectful jokes were not isolated incidents, but a persistent pattern that extended over several weeks. The prosecution argued these actions constituted harassment and emotional distress, emphasizing the tangible harm inflicted on Marcus's family and the broader school community. Community reaction to the emerging details was deeply divided. Many residents expressed shock and demanded accountability, viewing Ethan's behavior as emblematic of a troubling disregard for respect and empathy among youth. Local leaders and advocacy groups called for firm consequences to reinforce societal norms against bullying and online cruelty. "We must send a clear message that this behavior will not be tolerated," said a community organizer at a town hall meeting. Conversely, some community members urged caution, advocating for leniency given Ethan's age and the challenges inherent in adolescent development. They highlighted the need for rehabilitative approaches that could guide Ethan toward understanding and growth rather than imposing harsh penalties that might hinder his future. Teachers and youth counselors echoed this sentiment, emphasizing education and support as key to preventing recurrence. School officials found themselves navigating a delicate balance. The institution faced pressure to protect students and maintain a safe environment, while also supporting a young individual who had made grave mistakes. School counselors reported ongoing efforts to address the emotional needs of students affected by the case, offering counseling and peer support groups. The principal publicly acknowledged the incident as a catalyst for renewed commitment to anti-bullying initiatives. Throughout the pre-trial period, legal experts and mental health professionals weighed in on the complexities of prosecuting juvenile offenders in cases involving cyberbullying and emotional harassment. They discussed the challenges of assessing intent and understanding the developmental capacity of adolescents to comprehend the consequences of their actions. The case became a focal point in debates about how juvenile justice systems should balance accountability with the potential for rehabilitation. Marcus's family, while advocating for justice, also expressed hopes that the trial would foster broader awareness and empathy within the community. "We want this to be a learning moment for everyone," James Reed said during a media interview. "Our son's memory should inspire kindness, not cruelty." Their stance resonated with many who saw the case as an opportunity to promote healing and positive change. Ethan's defense team prepared for a contentious battle ahead. They focused on demonstrating his lack of malicious intent and youthful immaturity. Psychologists retained by the defense testified about typical adolescent behavior, impulsivity, and the importance of education over punishment. They argued that with proper guidance and counseling, Ethan could develop a better understanding of empathy and respect. Meanwhile, the prosecution assembled a compelling case that emphasized the deliberate nature of Ethan's actions and the real emotional harm caused. Witnesses included classmates who described feeling bullied and alienated, mental health experts who spoke about the impact of harassment on grieving, individuals and family members who recounted the pain inflicted by Ethan's posts. The prosecution underscored the need for accountability to safeguard the community and honor Marcus's memory. As the trial date approached, courtroom preparations reflected the gravity of the situation. The judge, well-versed in juvenile cases, emphasized the importance of a fair and thoughtful process. He reminded all parties of the sensitive nature of the case and the need to consider both the rights of the accused and the victims. The courtroom became a space where the community's conflicting emotions, grief, anger, hope, and compassion, would be confronted head-on. Outside the courthouse, the media spotlight intensified. News reports, opinion pieces, and social media discussions dissected every aspect of the case, from the legal arguments to the broader social implications. The story resonated nationwide, prompting conversations about the responsibility of young people in digital spaces and the challenges faced by families and schools in addressing cyberbullying. Community organizations responded by organizing forums and workshops aimed at educating parents, teachers, and students about the consequences of online harassment and the importance of empathy. Schools across the city reviewed their policies, introduced new programs, and sought to foster environments where respect and kindness were paramount. The case became a catalyst for change, pushing the conversation beyond the courtroom into everyday life. Amid the public discourse, Ethan remained a figure of youthful vulnerability. His demeanor during court appearances fluctuated, revealing moments of remorse and confusion. He struggled to articulate his motivations, often retreating into silence when questioned about the pain his actions had caused. His parents, visibly distressed, expressed a commitment to supporting him through the legal process and helping him learn from his mistakes. The tension in the community was palpable. Some feared that a harsh sentence might irreparably harm Ethan's future, while others believed that without firm consequences, similar incidents would continue unabated. The case underscored the difficult balance between protecting young offenders and ensuring justice for victims, a balance that challenged the legal system and society alike. As the investigation and pretrial processes unfolded, the story of Ethan Collins and Marcus Reed became more than a legal matter. It evolved into a mirror reflecting the struggles of a generation grappling with the power and pitfalls of digital communication. The courtroom was set to become the stage where these issues would be examined in detail, where evidence, testimony, and legal arguments would shape not only the fate of one boy, but also the future of how communities confront cyberbullying and emotional harm among youth. As the courtroom proceedings advanced, formal charges were officially filed against Ethan Collins, marking a pivotal moment in what had become a highly publicized and emotionally charged case. Ethan, only 14 years old, faced accusations of harassment and emotional distress stemming from his social media posts and conduct following the death of Marcus Reed. The charges underscored the seriousness with which authorities viewed his actions, signaling a commitment to addressing cyberbullying with the gravity it demanded, regardless of the offender's age. The legal documents detailed the nature of the offenses, citing multiple instances where Ethan's online behavior had crossed legal boundaries. Prosecutors emphasized that his posts were not mere juvenile mischief, but constituted targeted harassment intended to cause emotional pain to Marcus's family and peers. The charges reflected a growing recognition that digital actions can have real-world consequences, particularly when they inflict harm on vulnerable individuals during times of grief. Ethan's defense team responded swiftly, framing the case as a tragic but teachable moment. They argued that Ethan's youth and lack of mature judgment should weigh heavily in the court's consideration. Ethan did not fully understand the impact of his actions, his attorney asserted in court filings. He is a child who made serious mistakes, but is capable of learning and growth with proper guidance. The defense sought to emphasize rehabilitation and counseling over punitive measures, advocating for a path that would allow Ethan to make amends and develop empathy. Throughout pre-trial hearings, much attention was paid to Ethan's intent and mental state at the time of the posts. Psychological evaluations were conducted to assess his capacity for understanding the consequences of his actions and his overall emotional health. Experts testified regarding adolescent brain development, highlighting how impulse control and empathy are still evolving at Ethan's age. These assessments informed the ongoing debate about how juvenile offenders should be treated within the justice system. The prosecution, however, maintained that Ethan's behavior was deliberate and harmful. They argued that the timing of the posts, immediately following Marcus's funeral, demonstrated a callous disregard for the feelings of those mourning. Prosecutors contended that Ethan's actions went beyond reckless youthfulness, pointing to evidence that he was aware of the pain he was causing. They stressed that accountability was essential, not only for justice in this case, but to deter similar conduct by others. The courtroom drama extended beyond legal arguments into the realm of community values and societal expectations. Judges and attorneys grappled with balancing the need for accountability against the recognition of adolescent vulnerability. The case became a focal point for discussions about how justice systems can effectively address offenses that are both serious and committed by young individuals still in formative stages of development. During pretrial hearings, the defense presented character witnesses who spoke to Ethan's potential for positive change. Teachers described him as a bright student capable of compassion, albeit one who had made regrettable decisions. Counselors emphasized his willingness to engage in therapy and educational programs designed to foster emotional growth. These testimonials aim to humanize Ethan, portraying him as more than just the sum of his mistakes. Conversely, the prosecution called upon mental health experts who detailed the impact of cyberbullying on victims and communities. They highlighted the long-term emotional consequences faced by those targeted by harassment, especially in the fragile period following a tragic loss. These testimonies bolstered the argument that Ethan's conduct was not a harmless prank, but a serious offense with real victims. The judge overseeing the case underscored the complexity of the issues involved, noting the challenge of delivering justice that was both firm and fair. He reminded the courtroom that the law sought not only to punish, but also to rehabilitate, especially when dealing with juvenile offenders. The judge's comments reflected a nuanced understanding of the intersecting legal, psychological, and social dimensions of the case. As the legal process unfolded, Ethan's defense team continued to advocate for counseling and rehabilitative measures as the most appropriate response. They argued that such an approach would better serve both Ethan and the community by addressing the root causes of his behavior and preventing future incidents. The defense proposed programs focused on empathy training, digital responsibility, and conflict resolution. Meanwhile, the prosecution remained resolute in pursuing a firm sentence, emphasizing the need to reinforce community standards and protect potential victims. They argued that leniency could send the wrong message about the seriousness of online harassment and its consequences. The prosecution's stance reflected a broader societal concern about the growing prevalence of cyberbullying and its damaging effects. Throughout this period, the community closely followed the developments in court. Public opinion was divided, with some calling for strict punishment to uphold justice and deter similar behavior, while others urged compassion and support for a young person still capable of change. The case sparked conversations in schools, homes, and online about the responsibilities of youth in digital spaces and the boundaries of acceptable conduct. Marcus Reed's family remained engaged in the proceedings, expressing a desire for accountability balanced with an understanding of Ethan's age. They articulated the pain caused by the harassment, but also voiced hope that the case would lead to greater awareness and prevention efforts. Their perspective added a human dimension to the legal process, reminding all involved of the real people behind the charges. As pre-trial hearings concluded, preparations began for the upcoming trial, which promised to be a pivotal moment in addressing the intersection of juvenile justice and cyberbullying. Both sides readied their cases, aware that the outcome would have implications beyond Ethan Collins alone, potentially influencing how similar cases are handled in the future. The legal battle highlighted the evolving nature of juvenile law in the digital era, grappling with questions about how to protect victims, hold offenders accountable, and foster rehabilitation. The courtroom became a forum where these critical issues were debated with passion and care, reflecting society's attempts to adapt to new challenges posed by technology and youth behavior. Throughout the process, Ethan's future hung in the balance. His actions had set in motion a chain of events that would shape not only his life, but also the lives of those around him and the community's approach to justice. As the trial loomed, all eyes remained fixed on the courtroom, awaiting the decisions that would define this difficult and consequential chapter. The day the trial began, the courtroom in Chicago was charged with a tense mixture of anticipation and sorrow. Community members, friends, family, and media representatives filled the seats, all awaiting the proceedings that promised to address not only the fate of 14-year-old Ethan Collins, but also the larger issues of online conduct, juvenile justice, and the emotional wounds left in the wake of tragedy. The atmosphere was solemn, underscored by the knowledge that the trial was about more than legal arguments. It was a public reckoning with the consequences of cruelty and the limits of youth. The prosecution opened with a stark portrayal of Ethan's actions as deliberate and deeply hurtful. The lead prosecutor recounted the timeline of events, emphasizing Ethan's social media posts that mocked the recent death of Marcus Reed. This was not a careless joke, the prosecutor stated firmly. It was a calculated act of harassment that inflicted real pain on a grieving family and a community still healing from loss. The opening statement laid out the evidence that would be presented, including screenshots of posts, witness testimonies, and expert opinions on the impact of cyberbullying. The prosecution painted a picture of a young offender who had shown a callous disregard for the feelings of others, highlighting the timing of the posts immediately following Marcus's funeral as evidence of intent to cause harm. They described the broader implications of such behavior, warning of the dangers it posed to vulnerable individuals and the fabric of community respect. The message was clear. Even youth must be held accountable when their actions cross into harassment and emotional abuse. In response, the defense took a markedly different tone. Ethan's attorney began by acknowledging the pain caused, but urged the court to consider the complexity of adolescence. Ethan is a young boy who made serious mistakes, the defense counsel said in a measured voice. He lacked the maturity to fully comprehend the consequences of his actions and is sincerely remorseful. Our focus must be on rehabilitation, not punishment, to guide him toward a better path. The defense emphasized Ethan's willingness to take responsibility and undergo counseling, framing the case as an opportunity for growth rather than condemnation. Witnesses took the stand, bringing the case into sharper relief. Members of Marcus Reed's family spoke with heartfelt emotion about the loss and the additional suffering caused by Ethan's posts. Linda Reed described the shock and betrayal felt by the family, expressing the enduring pain of having their grief mocked publicly. Her testimony was a poignant reminder of the human cost behind the legal issues. Classmates also testified, with some detailing how Ethan's behavior had created a hostile and uncomfortable environment at school. They spoke of the anxiety and sadness that permeated their daily lives, illustrating the ripple effects of cyberbullying on a broader community. Their voices underscored the emotional harm inflicted by what might have been dismissed as just jokes to some. Mental health experts added a scientific dimension to the proceedings. Psychologists testified about the profound impact of harassment on grieving individuals, highlighting how such attacks can exacerbate trauma, lead to isolation, and impede healing. They explained that the emotional distress caused by Ethan's actions was not trivial, but had lasting consequences, particularly given the sensitive timing. When Ethan testified, his demeanor was a mixture of nervousness and remorse. Struggling to find words, he attempted to explain his motivations, at times appearing confused about the severity of his actions. He admitted to posting the jokes, but insisted he did not intend to cause lasting harm. "I didn't think it would hurt people this much," he said quietly. His testimony revealed a boy grappling with the fallout of his decisions, trying to reconcile his youthful impulsiveness with the reality of the pain he had caused. Throughout the trial, the judge maintained a measured and attentive presence. He frequently reminded all parties of the seriousness of cyberbullying and the emotional damage it can cause, underscoring the responsibility of young people to understand the impact of their words. The judge also acknowledged the challenges inherent in dealing with juvenile offenders, emphasizing the court's role in balancing justice with opportunities for rehabilitation. The courtroom was tense during closing arguments. The prosecution urged the judge to impose a firm sentence that would serve as a deterrent for others and affirm the community's commitment to protecting victims from harassment. "We must send a message that no one is above accountability, regardless of age," the prosecutor declared, imploring the court to consider the broader societal implications. In contrast, the defense pleaded earnestly for a rehabilitative approach. They reminded the judge of Ethan's youth and potential for positive change, advocating for counseling and educational programs tailored to foster empathy and responsibility. "Punishment alone will not heal these wounds," the defense counsel argued. "We must invest in Ethan's future to prevent further harm." As the trial drew to a close, the courtroom remained silent, the weight of the arguments and testimonies hanging heavily in the air. The case had opened a window into the complexities of adolescent behavior, digital responsibility, and the human pain behind cyberbullying. Both sides had presented compelling narratives, leaving the judge with the difficult task of determining a path forward that honored justice, healing, and hope. Outside the courthouse, the community wrestled with mixed emotions. Some voiced relief that the case was being taken seriously, hopeful that it would discourage similar behavior in the future. Others expressed concern about the potential consequences for Ethan, emphasizing the need for compassion and support for young offenders. Schools and local organizations intensified efforts to promote empathy and digital citizenship, recognizing the urgent need to address the roots of such incidents. Marcus Reed's family continued to advocate for awareness and kindness, speaking publicly about the importance of respecting those who are grieving and the dangers of online cruelty. Their voices served as a reminder of the real lives affected by the case and the broader call for societal change. For Ethan Collins, the trial marked a turning point. It was a moment when the consequences of his actions were laid bare, not only in legal terms, but in the emotional realities experienced by those around him. The experience challenged him, his family, and the community to confront difficult truths about youth, accountability, and the power of words. As the courtroom emptied and the city moved forward, the trial of Ethan Collins stood as a poignant example of the complexities faced when juvenile justice intersects with the digital age. It highlighted the urgent need for education, empathy, and thoughtful responses to protect both victims and young offenders navigating a rapidly changing social landscape. The courtroom was filled with a palpable tension as the prosecution laid out the digital evidence against Ethan Collins, a 14-year-old on trial for harassment and emotional distress linked to his online behavior after the death of fellow student Marcus Reed. Screens displayed a series of social media posts, messages, and text exchanges, each one underscoring the deliberate nature of Ethan's actions and the breadth of their impact. The evidence presented was not merely anecdotal, but meticulously compiled by digital forensic experts who traced Ethan's online footprint with precision. The prosecution showcased screenshots of Ethan's posts, which ranged from insensitive jokes about Marcus's death to direct taunts aimed at his grieving friends and family. Each post was time-stamped, revealing a pattern of repeated offenses over several weeks, particularly in the days immediately following Marcus's funeral. The sequence painted a disturbing image of a young boy who, despite the community's collective mourning, chose to engage in behavior that exacerbated pain and division. Witnesses from Marcus's circle took the stand to describe the hostile atmosphere that Ethan's posts fostered. Several classmates recounted feeling alienated and unsafe. explaining how the jokes and messages created an environment where grief was met with ridicule. One student tearfully described the difficulty of attending school while being subjected to relentless mockery. Their testimonies gave voice to the emotional toll that digital harassment exacted on those closest to the tragedy. Mental health professionals provided expert analysis on the consequences of such harassment. Psychologists explained that cyberbullying, especially in the immediate aftermath of a loss, could intensify trauma, leading to anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal. They emphasized that Ethan's actions were far from harmless. They had real, measurable effects on the mental well-being of Marcus's friends and family. Their testimony underscored the prosecution's argument that the emotional distress inflicted was significant and warranted serious consideration. The defense, seeking to contextualize Ethan's behavior, called upon their own experts to discuss adolescent development and impulse control. They argued that Ethan's actions, while regrettable, stemmed in part from immaturity and a lack of full understanding of the consequences. The defense's psychologists testified that adolescents often struggle with empathy and foresight, particularly in emotionally charged situations, and that Ethan's remorse was genuine. They urged the court to consider these factors when weighing his culpability. Ethan himself took the stand, his voice hesitant but sincere. Asked to explain his motivations, he admitted to posting the jokes, but expressed confusion about the reaction they had provoked. "I thought people would just ignore them or laugh," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." He recounted feeling overwhelmed by the attention the posts received and the subsequent backlash, revealing a boy grappling with the fallout of his decisions. His testimony was marked by moments of vulnerability, suggesting a young person struggling to reconcile his actions with their consequences. Cross-examination probed Ethan's awareness of the impact of his posts. Prosecutors questioned him about the timing and content, pressing on whether he realized the pain he was causing. Ethan's responses were inconsistent, reflecting both a lack of maturity and an emerging consciousness of the harm inflicted. The exchange highlighted the complexities of assessing intent and understanding in juvenile cases involving digital communication. Throughout the trial, the judge maintained a careful and attentive demeanor. He reminded the jury and courtroom observers of the seriousness of cyberbullying and the profound effects it could have on victims. The judge also acknowledged the challenges of adjudicating cases involving minors, noting the importance of balancing justice with opportunities for rehabilitation. His comments framed the proceedings within the broader context of juvenile justice and societal responsibility. The prosecution's presentation of evidence was bolstered by testimonies from educators and school counselors who described the ripple effects of Ethan's behavior within the school community. They reported increased anxiety among students, disruptions to the learning environment, and heightened concerns about safety and emotional well-being. These accounts reinforced the argument that the harm extended beyond individual victims to affect the broader student body. As the trial progressed, the defense highlighted Ethan's efforts to make amends. They presented evidence of his participation in counseling sessions and educational programs focused on digital responsibility and empathy. Teachers testified to his improved behavior and willingness to engage in reflection and growth. The defense framed these efforts as indicative of Ethan's capacity for change and the potential benefits of a rehabilitative approach. The courtroom drama unfolded against the backdrop of a society grappling with the implications of digital communication among youth. The case underscored the evolving challenges faced by families, schools, and legal systems in addressing harmful behavior that originates online but has tangible real-world consequences. Both sides acknowledged the need for clear guidance and effective interventions to prevent similar incidents. Community members followed the trial closely, many attending sessions or watching media coverage. The emotional testimonies and detailed evidence brought the realities of cyberbullying into sharp focus. Discussions emerged about the responsibilities of social media platforms, the role of parents and educators, and the necessity of fostering empathy in a generation raised in an interconnected digital world. Throughout the proceedings, Ethan's demeanor reflected a complex mix of remorse, confusion, and youthful uncertainty. Moments of candor and vulnerability revealed a boy coming to terms with the impact of his actions, even as he struggled to fully grasp their gravity. His testimony humanized the legal narrative, reminding all present that behind the charges stood a young person still in the midst of development. The expert testimonies and witness accounts collectively painted a multifaceted picture. A community wounded by loss, a young offender grappling with the consequences of poor choices, and a legal system striving to balance justice with compassion. The trial was as much about reckoning with the emotional fallout of tragedy as it was about defining accountability in the digital age. As the presentation of evidence and testimonies concluded, the courtroom prepared to move toward closing arguments. The detailed, often heart-wrenching accounts had laid bare the extent of the harm caused, and the challenges in addressing such conduct among juveniles. The judge's instructions would soon guide the jury in considering not only the facts, but the broader implications for justice, rehabilitation, and community healing. The story of Ethan Collins and Marcus Reed had transcended the individual, becoming a symbol of the urgent need to address cyberbullying with nuance and care. It highlighted the profound impact that words, typed hastily behind a screen, could have on real lives. The trial served as a stark reminder of the responsibilities that come with digital communication and the importance of empathy in a world where the line between virtual and reality grows ever thinner. The courtroom was heavy with anticipation as closing arguments commenced, the culmination of a trial that had held a community in rapt attention and exposed the raw realities of cyberbullying among youth. Judge Samuel Fletcher sat solemnly at the bench, his gaze steady as both prosecution and defense prepared to make their final appeals. The stakes were clear. This was not merely the verdict in a juvenile harassment case, but a defining moment for how society would address the intersection of adolescence, digital conduct, and emotional harm. Prosecutor Karen Diaz rose first, her voice measured yet resolute. She addressed the courtroom with unwavering conviction, painting Ethan Collins' actions as a deliberate and calculated assault on a grieving family and community. Ethan's posts were not innocent jokes, Diaz declared. They were targeted, hurtful, and timed to maximize pain. Marcus Reed's family, his friends, and the entire school suffered because of this cruelty. She urged the judge to impose a firm sentence, emphasizing the need to send a clear message that such behavior would not be tolerated, no matter the age of the offender. Diaz highlighted the evidence presented throughout the trial: the social media posts, the testimonies of classmates who felt harassed, and expert analyses on the emotional damage caused by cyberbullying. Justice demands accountability, she asserted. Without it, we risk normalizing harassment and diminishing the suffering of victims. Her closing argument called for a sentence that would serve both as a deterrent and a statement of community standards. When defense attorney Michael Grant took the floor, the atmosphere shifted subtly. His tone was empathetic, appealing to the judge's sense of fairness and understanding. Ethan is a child, a boy who made serious mistakes but is not beyond redemption, Grant began. He lacked the maturity to understand the full consequences of his actions, and he is deeply remorseful. Punishing him harshly will not heal wounds. It will only hinder his growth. He urged the court to consider a rehabilitative approach, focusing on counseling, education, and support to help Ethan develop empathy and responsibility. Grant recounted Ethan's efforts to engage in therapy and digital citizenship programs, presenting these as evidence of his willingness to change. He emphasized the importance of recognizing adolescent development and the potential for transformation. "Our goal must be to guide, not to condemn," Grant concluded. "Ethan's future depends on the compassion and wisdom we bring to this decision." The courtroom was silent as the judge prepared to address the arguments. Judge Fletcher spoke with gravity, acknowledging the complexity of the case. "This trial has brought to light the profound impact that words and actions can have, especially in the digital age," he said. "Cyberbullying is a serious offense that can cause lasting emotional harm. At the same time, we must remember that this defendant is a young person still learning about the consequences of his behavior." He expressed zero tolerance for the mockery of victims, emphasizing that the law must protect those who are vulnerable. "Our community must stand united against harassment and cruelty," he stated firmly. Yet, he also underscored the importance of rehabilitation, noting that the justice system has a responsibility to offer young offenders a path toward understanding and growth. The judge's remarks reflected the tension inherent in the case, the need to balance accountability with the recognition of youth and potential for change. His words resonated with the community, encapsulating the broader challenges faced by legal systems grappling with juvenile offenses involving emotional harm and digital platforms. As the courtroom awaited the sentencing, the atmosphere was charged with emotion. The families involved, community members, and observers understood that the judge's decision would reverberate far beyond this case, influencing how cyberbullying among minors was addressed in the future. Outside the courthouse, reactions were mixed but passionate. Advocates for victims' rights expressed relief that the judge acknowledged the severity of the offense and called for accountability. "This sends a powerful message that harassment will not be ignored," said a local anti-bullying organizer. Conversely, some community members and youth advocates cautioned against overly punitive measures, emphasizing the need for support and education to foster genuine behavioral change. Schools in the area intensified their efforts to combat bullying and promote empathy, launching new initiatives in response to the trial. Workshops on digital responsibility, peer support groups, and counseling services became more prevalent, reflecting a commitment to addressing the root causes of such incidents. For Ethan Collins, the trial had been a crucible of reckoning. His actions, once dismissed by some as immature jokes, had been laid bare as profoundly hurtful, with real victims and lasting consequences. Yet, the process also illuminated paths toward redemption and growth, offering a chance to learn and change. The case sparked broader conversations about juvenile justice and the complexities of adjudicating offenses committed in the digital realm. Legal experts debated the appropriate balance between punishment and rehabilitation, recognizing the unique challenges posed by social media's pervasive presence in young people's lives. As the community grappled with the outcome, there was a shared understanding that this case was a microcosm of a larger societal struggle: how to instill empathy, responsibility, and respect in a generation growing up at the intersection of technology and human relationships. The courtroom had become a forum for this critical dialogue, underscoring the importance of compassionate yet firm responses to youthful missteps that cause genuine harm. In the days following the closing arguments, preparations began for the judge's sentencing decision, a moment that would define the immediate future for Ethan Collins and set a precedent for similar cases. The community watched closely, aware that the resolution would speak volumes about justice, mercy, and the responsibilities of youth in a digital world. The day the verdict was announced, the atmosphere inside the Chicago juvenile courtroom was tense and expectant. After weeks of testimony, arguments, and emotional appeals, Judge Samuel Fletcher prepared to deliver his judgment on the case of 14-year-old Ethan Collins, who stood accused of harassment and emotional distress stemming from his social media posts about the recent death of fellow student Marcus Reed. The courtroom was packed with community members, family, friends, and media representatives, all awaiting the outcome of a trial that had captured the city's attention. Judge Fletcher's voice was steady, but firm as he began his pronouncement. After careful consideration of the evidence, testimonies, and arguments presented, the court finds Ethan Collins guilty of harassment and emotional distress. The judge's words echoed through the room, underscoring the gravity of the offense despite Ethan's youth. The verdict sent a clear message. Actions taken online carry real-world consequences, and cruelty, no matter the age of the offender, will not be tolerated. Despite the conviction, the judge's sentencing reflected a nuanced approach, balancing accountability with the recognition of Ethan's age and potential for rehabilitation. While the defendant's conduct caused significant harm, this court acknowledges that he is still a child, Judge Fletcher stated. Therefore, the sentence will focus on rehabilitation alongside appropriate consequences. The ruling underscored the court's commitment to fostering growth and understanding alongside justice. Ethan was sentenced to participate in a juvenile detention program tailored for young offenders, a structured environment aimed at promoting reflection and personal development. Alongside this, he was ordered to undergo mandatory counseling focused on empathy, digital responsibility, and emotional regulation. The judge emphasized that these measures were designed not only to hold Ethan accountable, but to equip him with the tools necessary to prevent future harm. The sentence also included community service requirements, encouraging Ethan to engage positively with those affected by his actions and to contribute to initiatives that promote kindness and respect within the community. This restorative component aimed to bridge the divide between offender and victims, fostering a sense of responsibility and connection. As the judge outlined the sentence, the courtroom remained somber. Ethan's parents, visibly emotional, expressed a mixture of relief and sorrow, acknowledging the seriousness of their son's actions while hoping the sentence would guide him toward a better path. Marcus Reed's family, present in the courtroom, listened intently. While the verdict did not erase their pain, it affirmed their belief in the importance of accountability and respect for victims. The judge's decision sparked immediate conversation within the community and beyond. Advocates for victims praised the ruling as a necessary affirmation that harassment and emotional harm are serious offenses, regardless of the perpetrator's age. This sentence sends a vital message that cruelty, especially in the vulnerable moments following tragedy, will be met with justice, said a local anti-bullying advocate. They stressed the importance of holding individuals responsible to protect the dignity of victims and the well-being of communities. Conversely, some youth advocates and community members called for a continued focus on rehabilitation and support. They emphasized that Ethan's age and willingness to engage in counseling should be leveraged to foster genuine behavioral change rather than solely punitive measures. Discussions arose around the need for increased resources in schools and communities to address the underlying issues that contribute to bullying and digital misconduct. The case prompted local schools to reassess their approaches to bullying prevention and digital citizenship education. Programs aimed at fostering empathy, respect, and responsible online behavior were expanded, with educators recognizing the urgent need to equip students with the skills to navigate the complexities of social media interactions. Workshops, peer mentoring, and counseling services became integral parts of the district's strategy to create safer and more supportive environments. Social media platforms also faced renewed scrutiny, as the case highlighted the challenges of monitoring and managing harmful content among underage users. Calls for improved safeguards, parental controls, and educational tools were amplified, reflecting a growing awareness of the responsibilities held by technology companies in protecting young users. For Ethan Collins, the sentence marked a turning point. The structured detention program and counseling were designed to confront the consequences of his actions while providing a pathway toward understanding and growth. The hope was that through these interventions, Ethan would develop the empathy and self-awareness necessary to become a responsible digital citizen and community member. The community grappled with the complex emotions surrounding the case: the sorrow of loss, the pain of harassment, and the cautious optimism for healing and change. Marcus Reed's family continued to advocate for kindness and respect, using their experience to educate others about the real impact of words and actions. Their advocacy became a beacon for community healing and a reminder of the human stories behind legal proceedings. Legal experts and juvenile justice advocates observed the case closely, recognizing it as a reflection of broader societal challenges. The balance struck between punishment and rehabilitation was seen as emblematic of evolving approaches to juvenile offenses in the digital age. The case fueled ongoing debates about how best to protect victims, hold offenders accountable, and support youth development in a rapidly changing social landscape. As Ethan began his sentence, the community's focus turned to prevention and education. Schools, families, and organizations united in efforts to foster environments where respect and empathy were foundational. The trial had illuminated the dangers of online cruelty, but also highlighted the potential for growth and change when justice is tempered with understanding. The story of Ethan Collins and Marcus Reed remained a poignant reminder of the power of words and the responsibilities that come with digital communication. The verdict and sentencing underscored the necessity of accountability, while offering a hopeful path toward rehabilitation for young offenders. The community's response reflected a collective commitment to learning from the past and building a more compassionate future. The aftermath of Ethan Collins' conviction rippled far beyond the walls of the Chicago juvenile courtroom, sparking a citywide reckoning on the consequences of online behavior and the urgent need for empathy in digital spaces. Schools, families, and community organizations mobilized to turn the painful lessons of the trial into proactive efforts aimed at preventing similar harm and fostering a culture of respect among youth. Ethan's case quickly became a cautionary tale about the power of words and the responsibilities that come with social media use. Educators took the opportunity to deepen conversations around digital citizenship, emphasizing that the anonymity or distance of a screen does not diminish the impact of one's actions. School districts across Chicago introduced comprehensive programs designed to teach empathy, conflict resolution, and the ethical use of technology, aiming to equip students with the tools necessary to navigate an increasingly interconnected world. Parents, too, found themselves grappling with the realities of their children's online lives. Workshops and community forums offered guidance on monitoring digital activity, fostering open communication, and nurturing emotional intelligence. Many families, shaken by the events surrounding Ethan and Marcus, committed to more vigilant and compassionate engagement with their children's experiences both online and offline. Legal experts and policymakers began debating the delicate balance between punishment and rehabilitation, particularly in cases involving juveniles and digital misconduct. Ethan's trial highlighted the complexities of holding minors accountable, while recognizing their developmental stages and capacity for change. Discussions centered on refining juvenile justice protocols to better address the nuances of cyberbullying and emotional harm in a way that promotes healing for victims and growth for offenders. Marcus Reed's family emerged as powerful advocates for kindness, empathy, and education. Linda and James Reed spoke publicly about their loss but also about the importance of transforming grief into positive action. They partnered with local organizations to create awareness campaigns and support networks for families affected by bullying and digital harassment. Their efforts resonated deeply within the community, fostering a collective commitment to preventing cruelty and honoring Marcus's memory through compassion. The trial also sparked broader societal conversations about the responsibilities of social media platforms in curbing harassment and protecting young users. Calls for improved safety measures, content moderation, and user education gained momentum as the public recognized the role technology companies play in shaping online interactions. The case underscored the need for collaborative approaches involving families, schools, legal systems, and tech industries to create safer digital environments within the juvenile detention and counseling programs. Ethan Collins began a journey of reflection and growth. Stripped of the distractions and defenses of social media, he confronted the consequences of his actions and the pain they had caused. Through therapy and structured activities, Ethan developed a deeper understanding of empathy and responsibility, recognizing the real-world effects of his digital conduct. His progress became a testament to the potential for rehabilitation when guided by support and accountability. The case of Ethan Collins became a reference point in ongoing efforts to reform juvenile justice systems, highlighting the importance of tailored interventions that address the unique challenges of youth in the digital age. Advocates called for increased funding for counseling, education, and restorative justice programs that prioritize healing over punishment, seeking to prevent recidivism and promote positive development. As the years passed, the community continued to wrestle with the complex emotions stirred by the trial: the grief over Marcus's loss, the anger at the harassment, and the cautious hope for transformation. Schools maintained their commitment to anti-bullying initiatives, and families remained engaged in fostering empathy and respect. The story of Ethan and Marcus served as a somber reminder of the stakes involved when cruelty intersects with youth and technology. Nationally, the case contributed to evolving conversations about juvenile sentencing and the ethical considerations of holding minors accountable for digital offenses. It fueled debates on how best to protect victims while ensuring that young offenders receive opportunities for rehabilitation. Policymakers and legal professionals studied the case as they crafted laws and guidelines responsive to the realities of contemporary youth culture. The legacy of the trial was multifaceted. It exposed the vulnerabilities of a generation coming of age in a digital world, the deep wounds that online harassment can inflict, and the critical need for compassionate justice. It underscored that accountability must be balanced with understanding, and that society as a whole bears responsibility for guiding its youth toward empathy and respect. For Marcus Reed's family, the journey was one of turning pain into purpose. Their advocacy helped transform a community's grief into action, ensuring that Marcus's memory would inspire kindness rather than cruelty. For Ethan Collins, the path forward was one of redemption, a chance to learn from his mistakes and contribute positively to the world he once hurt. Ultimately, the case became a profound chapter in the ongoing dialogue about youth, justice, and digital life. It served as a cautionary tale, a catalyst for change, and a call to action for communities everywhere to foster environments where young people can grow safely, respectfully, and with an awareness of the power their words carry. The story of Ethan and Marcus remains a poignant reminder of the fragile intersection between innocence and accountability in the digital age, and the enduring need for compassion at its heart.